back to the mini weekend. I'm your host, Jack. Let's get into it, Mini. Oh, that's not too bad. So obviously coming at you guys here, I shouldn't say live because we're not live streaming, but coming at you guys here Thursday night, September 11th. I apologize. I kind of did this again last minute with no announcement. Yesterday I had a full day. I was at a customer event for work, went later than expected, and truthfully wasn't 100%. So figured it was probably be best just to get a good night's rest, regroup, get everything together, and come at you guys with not being in shambles. But before we jump into our drink of the podcast, what we're drinking tonight, again, it is September 11th. I know we're predominantly, regardless of what's going on in the world, predominantly sports based over here. I know on occasion when we have, the state fair going on or things going on in our backyard, I like to address that and give some attention to it. But first and foremost, September 11th, want to shout out to everybody that lost their lives. What was that, 24 years ago, back in 2001 already? I don't know about all of you listening to this, but I personally was in, the fourth grade. And I remember my mom running out to me at recess. She was volunteering for recess duty that day. And she kind of told me I had an uncle at the time working out there. And she's like, kind of told me a little bit about what happened, and we were going to see it on TV. And it's crazy just talking about it, some of the memories that you kind of get put back in that place. So want to tell anybody that might be listening to this that was affected by that, you're still in our thoughts, you're still in our prayers, always on our minds. And it's crazy to think that's something that I lived through. My kids within the next 5 to 10 years are going to learn about it in a history book. So wanted to just take a quick minute and bring some attention to that, as we typically don't do that, but something like this is something that needs to be talked about. And then lastly, there is one other thing that I personally wanted to address here as a father of 2 small children. It's all over the news, so I'm guessing most of you already heard, but if you didn't, a conservative activist, Charlie Kirk, passed away yesterday, getting shot in the throat at one of his campus tours at, I think it was in Utah. I think it was Utah State. But he passed away yesterday at just the age of 31, leaving behind a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful small children. I'd be lying to you guys if I said this didn't hit home a little bit for me. Their oldest is around the same age as my oldest, and their youngest is around the same age as my youngest too. So it's with a heavy heart that, we have to say goodbye to a public figure like that. And before I kind of get on here and go on here, I do want to preface this by saying we don't really get political here on the mini weekend. I like reading about it. It's not something I am super confident in talking about because I don't always have the all of the information to best talk about it. But all I can say is, regardless of your political party, regardless of your beliefs, regardless of your skin color, how you look, anything, a human life is a human life. So as far as I'm concerned, as a Christian, anybody not taken off this earth by natural causes is just devastating, especially when you're so young. So I just wanted to take a quick moment and, say, obviously, all of us over here at the mini weekend, myself included, thoughts and prayers and our hearts break to your family, friends, anybody else that knew him. And really, really heartbreaking. Like I said, it's been, we're not going to talk about it too much more because I don't want to get super emotional, but I was, like I said, at a customer event yesterday, and I got the news actually from some of my family. And for somebody that I don't know personally, I was surprised kind of the last 24 hours that I got a little weird about it and whatever. It's probably because of the youngness and the kids stuff and everything like that. But it sucks that something like that happened. But I think the best thing we can do is use our voices to bring awareness to it and try to do our best as the next generation coming up to use our words, use our platforms, and make the world a better place the best way that we can, regardless of if we agree or disagree on things. So with that, like I said, remembering our 9/11 families, everybody that was affected by that, and then remembering Charlie Kirk and his family, his friends, and everybody that knows him. So with that, drink of the podcast, getting into the thick of things that we do best here at the mini weekend. I told you guys a couple weeks ago that I saw this was coming out from Olipop. I told you we would find it, we would do it. And heck it, we are doing it. It's the SpongeBob SquarePants themed Pineapple Paradise. And I have to say, it's a little more tart than I typically like. But the pineappleness is so juicy that I kind of am overlooking this tartness of it. It's very good. For those, again, we've done a good amount of Olipop stuff here. But for those that don't know what Olipop is they are a soft drink that is branding themselves kind of like as a prebiotic soda, or a soda that is better for you than your traditional sodas like your Pepsi's, Dr. Peppers, and all those other ones. So yeah, and this one is, my gosh, I should have got more of these. What this one says: are you ready, kids? Skip into Bikini Bottom, where the sun's always shining and the bubbles sparkle with glee, with a burst of juicy pineapple special sweetness and a splash of mandarin. Pineapple paradise is pure liquid joy, just like SpongeBob SquarePants. With 6 grams of fiber and no need for fridge storage, our non-refrigerated formula can hang anywhere, cool and dry. Just give it some ice or fridge time before sipping. And that's exactly what this is. This is very refreshing. This is a 12-ounce bottle, or 12-ounce can. There's 35 grams of sugar in it, or 35 calories in this, and only 4 total sugars, which includes 3 added sugars. And in all of their drinks, including this one, it's high in fiber. It has less sugar, like I just said. It's non-GMO. It's vegan, plant powdered, it's paleo, and it's gluten-free. So all of their drinks are like that. They have different flavors. You can go check them out. Drinkolipop.com, and they're all over, social media as well. TikTok, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, X, LinkedIn, all that fun stuff. So go check them out. We've had them on the podcast, obviously, before. We really like their stuff. Very, very fun and very delicious. I have to say, there's, like, personal preference wise, there are certain flavors that I've had that I don't particularly like, but all of them have just like a unique taste to them. And I have to say, this one, very good. And it's funny because when I first heard about them, it looked like they were coming out for a limited time, but now if you go onto their site, it looks like it's here to stay for at least a little bit, as it's branded as new instead of like limited time, which is kind of sweet and cool. So yeah, go check them out. Drinkolipop.com. They have all different flavors that you can go check out. You can let us know what your favorite flavor is. You should let us know what you want to see us try next. And with that, before we move on, let's go. Man, I really like this. I think I'm gonna go 9. I was kind of leaning towards going a high 8, but I think the uniqueness of it, and I don't have enough pineapple in my life, and I love pineapple. So yeah, solid 9. Really like it. I would get it again. I urge you guys, if you like pineapple, even if you don't like pineapple, but you like SpongeBob, go try this. You won't regret it. And it's only 35 grams, or 35 calories, 4 grams of sugar. So that is what we have for our drink of the podcast. And then, yeah, Tommie Town. So it was actually announced earlier this week. What's that? Tuesday the 9th? Yeah, Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday the 9th. You could officially get single game tickets are now on sale for the men's and women's hockey teams. So make sure you go to tommiesports.com. And you can either get there one of two ways. On the header, you can hover over tickets, and now you can actually click on buy tickets, or the 2 hockey teams, and just buy them right there for single games. Or you can actually go to the men and women's schedules and buy them by clicking on the game too, which is super sweet. And now we are down to 43 days until the Lee and Penny Anderson Arena open up. Obviously, the reason that not all 4 teams you can buy right now is because basketball starts a little bit later. Hockey starts sooner. My brother-in-law and I will be at the first men's hockey game, one of the first 2. We haven't decided if we're going to go to the Friday night or the Saturday night game, but we're going to be at one of those 2 games. I haven't gotten tickets yet, but by the end of the weekend, we will have our tickets. Super excited and can't wait to potentially see some of you guys and see this arena. I've seen all the pictures inside, outside. It looks amazing. It's going to be a great touch to an already beautiful campus. So can't wait to see that get underway, and can't wait to try to get out to as many men and women's hockey games and basketball games as we can, and support the Purple Roll Toms. So with that, the Tommie football team lost a very, very close one to a top-ranked team in the Idaho Vandals this last week, 37-30. You know, when as a sports fan, you never want your teams to lose. Unfortunately, there are times when your team has a good or really good game and they're going up against a team that is just quite frankly better and just made a couple extra plays. And I think this is a case of what just happened. Like I said, at the time they were ranked number 11 in the nation. So to be able to say, like, if nothing else, and again, we've talked about at length on here before about not really believing in moral victories and all that kind of stuff. But I think if you're Glenn Caruso, you've got to come out of Moscow, Idaho, coming home and feel good about that game. No, it's not North Dakota State. No, it's not South Dakota State. It's not Montana State, some of the juggernauts in FCS. But to be able to, I mean, if you look at the scoreboard too, like the Tommies were leading the Vandals for a good chunk of the game. They were up, 7-3 at one point, 13-10. And then, yeah, after 13-10, going into 13-10 in the first half, you know, they kind of played from behind, but they were never, you know, super out of it. They made some big plays towards the end of the game to make it comparable, and they were an onside kick that didn't miss by much away from being able to try tying the game. And again, being able to play. Yeah, this is their fifth year in as a Division I program, and to see that they're already playing with top 10 teams, top 11, 12 teams in the nation is commendable. I mean, there aren't a lot of programs that can do that. So if you're Glenn Caruso, yeah, obviously you wanted to win, but you've got to feel good about where your team's at. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys had really big games. Andy Peters once again had another really solid game, completing 21 on 29 passes for 264 yards, 3 touchdowns, only took 2 sacks. Our Idaho Vandals took just as many sacks. The rushing game was also led by Andy Peters, rushed for an additional 79 yards. Pat Bowen rushed for 61 yards and a touchdown. Joseph Cook, 72 yards. And then on the receiving side, you had Mariano Birdno, Patrick Wagner, and Quentin Cobb Butler, all with receiving touchdowns. And all three of those guys with 58 plus receiving yards on at least 3 receptions apiece. So Andy Peters was really sharing the ball around there. And yeah, just all around solid effort. You know, I think, again, this was just a case of a good team in the Tommies just going up and losing against another good team that was just a little bit better. And you know, this is one of the things we talked about when they were in the MIAC and getting out of the MIAC into Division One. Like when I was there, I much would have rather watched them lose this game in person at St. Thomas versus watching us beat up on, you know, Gustavus or Hamlin 70-0. Because yeah, it's fun for those guys to pad their stats, but I'm not really paying attention after halftime because nobody wants to watch that. You know, that's just not fun. It's not competitive. So good hard-fought game by the Tommies, and hoping that they can bounce back. Their next game is Saturday, the 13th, 2 days here. They have a noon start in Marquette-Man, their second of 3 straight away games before coming back home, and they're going up against a Northern Michigan squad that started 0-2. They've already played them, once in the past. No, they don't. This was their canceled game, their first year in Division One. But yeah, they got a good game against Northern Michigan coming up. Again, another bounce back kind of get right game before you head into Pioneer Football League play. Because then they'll be off next week, and then the following week after that they'll be in San Diego for a game before coming home to play Butler on October 4th for their homecoming game. And yeah, like I said, should be a good game. Should be a good get back game for the Tommies. Like I said, they're coming into this one 0-2 after. I don't know too much about the teams that they've played, but they're coming fresh off of a 18-23 loss against Northwood Timberwolves from Michigan. And then their first game of the season was a 37-44 loss to the Minnesota State Moorhead Dragons. So yeah, it should be a fun one. Should be a good one, and super excited to see if they can bounce back and take a 2-1 record heading into Pioneer Football League play, and trying to really capitalize on that so that they can get into postseason this year, because that would be fun. I'm going to be at that game should they make it. And then, yeah, our Gophers had another really good week. They took on an FCS team in the Northwestern State Demons from Louisiana. Absolutely dog walked them 66-0, and they didn't even score a single point in the fourth quarter. In fact, with 10 minutes and 43 seconds left to go in the second quarter, they were up 49-0. They only scored 7 points, 1 touchdown in all of the second half. An 8-yard run from the, I think, junior or sophomore quarterback, Mac Shikinjansky. I definitely butchered that. But yeah, you saw things, kind of all around the board. Points kind of got kicked off by a 29-yard pick six from John Nestor. AJ Turner, 1-yard run. Lemecki Brockington got a rushing touchdown. Drake Lindsay got another rushing fun with a one. Matt Kingsbury got a 25-yard scoop and score. Javon Tracy caught a 45-yard pass from Jake Lindsay. Cam Davis run. Fame Ajitabo, a 22-yard pass from Max Chijinski, his first and only one as a Gopher. And then Brady Denneberg actually made a 27-yard field goal. And that's how they got their 66 points. Again, this was very much one of those games that you knew they were going to win this one. It was a matter of how much. But you almost, in a game like this, you almost, as a fan, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, because this game didn't really make them any better. Like, they didn't have any adversity. Like, they were walking the whole game. And now they got to turn around and play a Cal team who is 2-0. Not to say this isn't a team that they can't beat, but they're coming off of their first win to 15 over Oregon State, who is a decent team. And then they beat Texas Southern, who I don't know who they are. They could honestly be an FCS team. Beat them 35-3. And you got to go to California. Obviously, it's probably going to be pretty nice weather. But again, this is one of those games that, I hate to admit it, but it's almost kind of one of those trap games where it's like, they really should win this game. They're favored by 2.5 points. They really should win this game. But if they don't, they could be looking at heading into, Big Ten play against Rutgers, going to Ohio State, Purdue, Nebraska, losing one of your non-conference games, and really what am I blanking? Really what PJ Fleck and this team prides themselves on is getting these big non-conference wins, because the Big Ten is so competitive. They really do a great job of taking advantage of these non-conference games, and that help them get postseason eligible. But again, you look at the schedule and you think, well, even if they lose to California, Rutgers, Purdue, Iowa, Michigan State, Northwestern Wisconsin, they should be able to win some games. But again, you got to stay consistent. You got to keep putting points up, and yeah, should be an interesting one for them. They will be playing. It's a night game at 9:30 at night. So yeah, that's what we got for our football teams. And then before we get going again, this is actually one of the first, I kind of forgot about it, but one of the first episodes that we've done not wearing any UNRL. We have our old school purple people eater hat. I can't remember where I got this TTO. Oh, it was a gift, and I think my brother got it for me from one of those like fan zone stores in the mall. And then got my cool Minnesota Soldiers shirt on. Super ready for Sunday Night Football already. And Thursday Night Football is just like halfway through here. But even though we're not wearing our UNRL apparel tonight, still want to give them our shout out and some love that they definitely deserve from sending us some really fun stuff. But also just wanted to remind you guys, I'm sure most of you have heard now, but if you haven't, NFL Volume 5 Limited Edition has been announced. The 14 total teams are obviously our Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears, Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys, Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, New York Jets, Steelers, Carolina Panthers, Giants, Patriots, and Broncos. So, yeah, I've already seen some people on Facebook and everything like that that are like Dolphins fans or Tampa Bay fans, and like, you should have done us this and that and the other thing. So it's really cool to kind of see them finally getting this national attention, which is really awesome. And quite frankly, they deserve it. They make, like we talk about week in and week out, quality material, quality clothes, athleisure, and everything like that. So yeah, additionally, after with their 14-team expansion, they have their schedule for their Vikings NFL collaboration, 5 drops, and then there's an additional 4 Viking exclusive drops. So for volume 5 of the NFL drops will be on, you can find this on their website too, UNRL.com for Unreal. Drop 1 is 32 days away, October 14th. Drop 2, November 4th. Drop 3, November 11th. Drop 4, November 18th. 3 in November, that's okay. And then last and fifth one, December 16th. And on top of those 5 dates, the other 4 Vikings exclusives will be in less than a week here, September 16th, their Dublin edition. September 23rd, their London edition. December 9th, their Whiteout edition. And then December 30th, their Legacy edition. So super, super, super excited. Can't wait to see what they come up with. I was really wanting to get the jacket last year, and I talked myself out of it, and I regret it every single day. Per usual, go check them out, UNRL.com. Once again, on a weekly basis, I will remind you guys, I do know it is pronounced Unreal. You can check them out all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, all that stuff. And then lastly, make sure if you do go to check out, use my link in my description. I post it on my TikToks too, sometimes my Instagrams. It should be anywhere. If you don't know where it is, let me know. If you click on it and use that link, you'll get $15 off your order. And while getting that $15 off, you'll also get points for your order going forward as well. So make sure you're saving yourself some money. Why not, right? So that's what we have for UNRL this week. Unreal. And with that, I'm just now realizing, before we gave you our UNRL pitch, Unreal pitch, we didn't give you our college football recap from last week and our picks this week. College football week 2, we went 2-1. Duke +3 did not hit. They lost to Illinois 19-45, got dog walked by them. Iowa State did go under 41.5 points. Iowa State won 16-13, like almost I predicted. I'm pretty sure I either said 19-13 or 16-13. Then Arizona State did not cover their 6.5 points. In fact, they lost 20-24. Still a close game. But yeah, just like everything, and we've talked about before, we move on and we always get better. So the 3 picks I like this week for you guys for a college football week 3 picks, I like Notre Dame -6.5 over Texas A&M. I think CJ Carr bounces back in this game. I've said this before too, maybe not on the podcast, but to family and friends, I really like Marcus Freeman as a coach. And I think it helps that they're coming off their bye, being fresh after that first loss they took to Miami in, what would that be, week 1. Despite being 2-0, getting off to a 2-0 start, Texas A&M has struggled so far. So like I said, I like Notre Dame under the lights at home to take care of business against the Aggies and win by at least 7 points. I would not be surprised if it was at least a 10-point game. The second pick I like for you guys, Georgia Tech +4 over Clemson. I like the points, and I actually think they will probably win this game outright. This Georgia Tech team they're good, and I feel like they're a sleeper team to win the ACC. But the main reason I like this pick is because of Clemson's lackluster offense. They're looking shaky at best so far. So shaky that I'm starting to think that Cade Klubnik might not be the guy. And I honestly think the Yellow Jackets just have all the momentum right now, especially with it being a home game for them. So give me Georgia Tech +4. And then the third pick I like for week 3 is Oregon State, Texas Tech to hit over 60.5 points. Texas Tech's offense is currently rolling under Baron Morton at the helm of the QB position. Sorry, I've been getting swarmed by like a bug down here, a fly. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this Texas Tech team didn't put up, I wouldn't be surprised if they put up 50, 60 points just by themselves, as they're averaging 64.5 points through their first 2 games. And then to add to the fire of this Oregon State defense has looked not good as they gave up 70 total points in their first 2 games. So like I said, I like the over 60.5 in this game. And those are the picks that I like for college football week 3. And then before we get more into our NFL picks and looking towards the football season, we do have a couple of other things within the Wild and the Wolves to talk about too. So first things first. So recently it was announced, and I saw this and I was like, what? It took a little bit out of me not to overreact and be like, what the hell? But it was reported that earlier this week, Kirill Kaprizov and his agent, they turned down what was apparently an 8-year contract extension worth $128 million. If you guys follow 10K Takes, Bill Guerin was recently on their podcast, and he essentially said he has no idea how that information got out. He went on to say that him and Kirill's agent have such a wonderful relationship. It didn't get out from Guerin and his team, the Wild Side, and he knows for sure that the agent did not get it out. So no idea how it got out. But he then proceeded to talk about how calm and collected and sure he is that they're going to get a deal done at some point. I'm guessing it's another situation like his first contract extension, where it's less about the money and more about the flexibility with the salary cap and things like that. I'm guessing because when he originally signed his 5-year, $45 million contract extension, his first one, we originally offered him like I think a 7 or an 8-year deal because we wanted to lock him up long term. Whereas him and his agent were like, hey, we want to be here, we want to be here longer for a year or two, but we are looking more like 4 or 5 years. They agreed on 5. So I'm guessing the main thing is not the money. I'm sure Kirill said this money is perfect, but I'm sure between him and his agent, they were talking that, hey, like Minnesota's great, but let's think of a situation where maybe you're not competing for a Stanley Cup in the next year or two. You may want that flexibility of doing that. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we will in the next couple of years, but that's how the mind of NHL stars and negotiating works. If I'm Kirill Kaprizov and his agent, I am probably hoping to sign something before the season starts, because if you're Kirill, what you don't want to happen, as good as he is, what you don't want to happen is for the season to start, be like, all right, it's October, let's revisit things around the holidays. And then when the holidays come around, you're missing games because you're getting injured, your growing injuries coming back, or you have something with your leg or something like that. Because in that situation, not that Bill Guerin or our team would slight him, but then that's when he would lose a lot of his leverage, because then Guerin, Leopold, and those guys would come back to him and say, look, now we want to offer you a little bit less. You're a great player. Availability is key in the NHL. So if I'm Kirill and his agent, I think they understand the urgency of getting a deal done, so that they don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. And just so that you guys know, he's not a free agent until after this current season. So they have time to get something done. And I fully anticipate by the time the season starts that they will have a contract extension in place. But yes, just like everybody else, when I first saw it, I was kind of like, okay, that's odd. So yeah, and then that's all we have for the Wild. And then kind of similar to earlier before, the only new news that I wanted to bring up is in regards to Naz Reid. So it didn't make national news, but Naz Reid this last weekend, his sister was fatally shot and killed in her home in her apartment complex in Jackson, New Jersey. Apparently, it was her boyfriend that was charged with the murder. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers go to Naz Reid and his family as they deal with this. Probably 26, with Naz Reid being 26. His sister is probably anywhere from, 23 to 30. So again, very short life. Our thoughts and prayers go out to her. Members, guys around the team and league have reached out, tweeting, Karl Anthony Towns, heartbroken, no words can ever take away the pain for my brother, holding everyone close in prayer today. And it's moments like this when you realize that, there are things bigger than basketball. There are things bigger than football, and there's things bigger than hockey. Despite how much we love to talk about them on here, these people have families, their brothers, sons, fathers, uncles, and she was 28, so even younger than Charlie Kirk. So very short life. Thoughts and prayers go out to you, my brother Reid. And don't have any other words for that other than we're thinking about you, and even the whole Timberwolves organization. I don't know personally because I've never been a professional athlete, but I get the sense that especially on a team when there's like 15 guys, you learn and you meet everybody's wives, brothers, sisters, moms, dads. So I'm sure there are a lot of people around the organization that are a little heartbroken from this. So thoughts and prayers go to everybody involved. But with that, we are now at the time of our NFL talk. So I think for starters, we can take a look at our picks from last week. And if you look at them, we did pretty darn good last week. For our upset, we took New Orleans plus 7.5. That hit as they only lost to the Arizona Cardinals 13-20. Don't get me wrong. I knew this would be close, and I don't know. Like, this was one of those games, even though it was week 1, where it was like, is Arizona really not that great, or is New Orleans going to maybe be a little bit better than people anticipated them being? The Broncos, very similar to New Orleans, just by their hair on their chinny chin chin, they held their 7.5 points over the Tennessee Titans as they won 20-12. And I talked about this the other night on the on our Pick'em show, and I have to give Cam Ward some credit. He looked better than his stats led you to believe. A lot of those incompletions were drops more than they were incompletions. So he actually looked pretty solid. But if you're a wide receiver, if you're his guys out there, you got to catch those balls. You have to. I'm obviously glad they didn't, because that helps me win money and win my picks. And then we're not going to get into the Vikings right away, but that obviously hit. They were 1.5-point favorites, and they ended up winning by 3. A big 27-21 win over the Chicago Bears in the first Monday Night Football game of the year, which was huge. And then, well, on the topic of how last week went, our bold predictions, offensive and defensive for the week, neither of them hit. We said Mason and Jones were going to collectively rush for 150 yards. That did not happen. They only got 91 yards. Defense, I said, was going to sack Caleb at least 4 times. That did not happen. We got him twice, but it was awesome. Jonathan Hargrave got both of them. So huge start and huge impact making already. But yeah, before we get too much into just the Vikings, I thought we'd just kind of go over week 1 as a whole. And I have to say, most of these games were super close. Eagles won by 4, Chargers won by 6, Bucks won by 3, Bengals won by 1, Raiders won by 7, Cardinals won by 7, Steelers won by 2, Broncos won by 8, 49ers by 4, Rams by 5, Bills by 1, and then the Vikings by 3. But you did have a couple of games. You saw the Jaguars take care of the Panthers by 16. Panthers take care of business 21-6 over the Giants. And then the biggest flop that I actually got wrong, the Colts 33-8. Guys, I think by the end of the season, by halfway through the season, I think Tua is no longer going to be their starting quarterback. I think Tyreek's going to be traded, and I think Mike McDaniels is, after that atrocious of a game, probably more than likely for sure going to be the first head coach fired in the season. Not at all surprised. The Bengals played the Browns to a 1-point game. I shouldn't say that. A little surprised it was only a 1-point game. I figured it was going to be a 3 or 4-point game, but the fact that it was that close is pretty crazy. But all around, it was a good week. A lot of the primetime games were close and enjoyable. Like I said, you saw the Eagles win by 4, the Chargers win by 6. Even though those afternoon games, you saw the Bills Sunday Night Football. That might have been the game of the year. And I think overall it was a good first week. Lots of positive, lots of good things. You saw a team like the Las Vegas Raiders play a little bit better. I don't think the Patriots played their best game or the game that they could have played, but they played a solid game and a lot better than I think a lot of people anticipated. So kudos and hats off to them. So with that, yeah, why don't we just start getting into the Vikings? I think a lot of people in the NFL are very quick to call for the quarterback when their team loses, and give all the credit to the quarterback when they win, which, to be fair, JJ McCarthy deserves a lot of credit because the way he was poised and the way he played when, like I talked about, the rubber met the road, he played sensational. It's not like he threw for 300 yards. Again, 13 of 20 through the air, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick six, and rushed for a touchdown of himself. But this really, like, once this team kind of came together and clicked the final 25 minutes, it really was like a team effort. Like throughout the game, you saw Jordan Mason. I mean, looking at the box score, Jordan Mason, 68 yards on 15 carries. His long was 19. So he had some solid runs to help extend drives, give us positioning that we just couldn't capitalize on. You saw Aaron Jones Sr. catch a touchdown, 3 receptions, 44 yards. Justin Jefferson, 44 yards on 4 receptions and a TD. But just like simple things too, like Reichert with his leg looked good. He was 2 of 2 field goals, long from 59, new record in Soldier Field. And obviously with the extra point. But even looking at guys like Ty Chandler and Miles Price, they did a great job on kick returns and punt returns of decent run backs to give us decent field position. Just up until late in the game, we just couldn't capitalize on it. You saw punt returns, Miles Price on 4 punt returns, 68 yards. His longest was 22 yards. And on kick returns, Ty Chandler, 3, 84 yards. 33 was his longest. Miles Price, 249 yards. 25 was his longest. So that's huge too. You're not necessarily going to see that success all year round, like all year. But if they can, 1 or 2 times a day, 1 or 2 times a game, give us that positioning and give McCarthy a somewhat shorter field, that's going to help him ease into the program here, ease into the NFL, and make these games a little bit more attainable and a little not so much where he's reaching for it. And then on the other side, like I said, we saw Caleb Williams be Caleb Williams that I know he is. When he's not playing with the lead or feeling comfortable, he panics, he is in his head, he makes careless mistakes, and that's why, again, I think Chicago's in for another long, long year. So yeah, that's what I have for the recap of that game. Now looking forward to a second straight national game, Sunday Night Football. Atlanta Falcons coming to Minnesota. And I have to say, this is going to be another interesting one. Again, second straight game that features 2 top quarterbacks taken from the 2024 draft. Obviously, this last one we saw Caleb Williams was taken at number 1. JJ was taken at 10. But this upcoming one is actually going to be a college football playoff championship rematch of Michael Penix when he was with Washington and JJ McCarthy when he was with Michigan. And 10 and 11 picks. And I have to say, I think we're going to win this game. And I not only do I like our chances of winning this game, but I think we're going to win it. And there's a couple factors. One, I think, like I said on the pick'ems, it's US Bank Stadium is a hard place to play, especially if you're a young quarterback like Michael Penix, and especially if you're not as mobile of a quarterback as like even Caleb Williams. And I think that's going to play a big factor. And we saw this last week and most of last year. Younghoe Koo and that team, they have a hard time closing out games, and I think that's going to affect their play in US Bank Stadium too. So let's just get right into it. So before we get into this, let's give our NFL picks for this week. So our upset, the Patriots are 1.5 point underdogs to the Miami Dolphins. And I have to say, it amazes me that even though it's a home game for the Dolphins, that they are favored in this game despite how awful they looked in week 1. Don't get me wrong, the Pats didn't look great in their week 1 loss to the Raiders either, but they did play them close. But I really think this Miami team presents Drake May and this Pittsburgh Patriots team with a good get-right spot, and I fully anticipate that to happen. And then my lock of the week, I like the Lions at 5.5. Kind of like the Patriots. I think there's another good get right spot for the Lions. and Jared Goff. I really don't see this being a particularly pretty game, but it's in Detroit, and I think if Detroit can against Chicago, if they can get out and get an early lead and make Caleb Williams play from behind, on like the Vikings did on Monday Night Football, it's not like it's going to be a tough game for Caleb Williams, and the Lions should easily win by at least a touchdown. I know there's still going to be some growing pains these first, 4 to 6 weeks with the new offensive coordinator and new defensive coordinator for everything to gel. But just with the status of this Chicago team, I don't know what it is about the Bears. Caleb Williams, unless he's playing with an 8 to 14 point lead, he looks just not confident, and he doesn't look like an elite quarterback that's gonna stand up when adversity hits and they need him to win. So yeah, that's what I got for the lock. So upset Patriots plus 1.5 over the Miami Dolphins. Lock Lions minus 5.5 over the Chicago Bears. And then the Vikings game were 4.5 point favorites over the Atlanta Falcons, and I kind of go back and forth. I think this game could be close. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a blowout, but I see it kind of being somewhere between like a 6 and like 11 point game, 6 and 11, 12 point game. It's going to be enough that we at least cover, but it's not going to be like, we're blowing them up by 2 touchdowns or something like that, which leads us into the end of the podcast here. So I'm going to officially come out and say we are going to win Week 2 Sunday Night Football to start 2-0 this year, along with the Packers in the NFC North. We're going to win 31-20. Offensive bold prediction is I think J.J. McCarthy is going to build off of the late game success and the fact that he's going to be playing at home. I think he's going to throw for 3 touchdowns in his first U.S. Bank win. And then on the defensive side of things, I think this defense is going to force at least 3 turnovers. This is a Vikings team that was tied for the league lead last year with 33 takeaways. Only forced 1 turnover in the Bears game. It barely counts because it was essentially last play of the game they were playing Fumble-Rooski anyways. But I think Brian Flores is going to get creative when it comes to pressuring Penix again, and I think that's going to be a factor with that. He's not as mobile. He's going to stay in the pocket a little bit longer, and sacks, fumbles, errant passes, interceptions. I'm not calling anything specific, but there will be at least 3 turnovers committed by forced by our defense. And it's going to be another good, fun win. Might not all be pretty, but it should be a little bit prettier than that Atlanta game since the Chicago game, since we're playing at home. JJ's going to have at least a game under his belt. And hopefully Kevin O'Connell just lets him off the leash and just lets him loose and lets him, play how he wants to play instead of having all these scripted things. Because my dad made an interesting point when I was watching Monday Night Football at this game that it almost looked like Kevin O'Connell was kind of handcuffing him with his what am I trying to say, play calling and things like that. So yeah, that's what I got for you guys tonight. And then lastly, before we go, our first ever mini weekend live streaming of our Minnesota sports commentating will be this Sunday Night Football, the game versus the Atlanta Falcons. So once again, you can watch it by going to ast.live. You don't need an account. It'll just be one of the first ones that pop up. Or you can just go straight to our YouTube channel. You can interact with me. We'll have a little bit of like music in the background. We might just have some of the or we might have some of the game on in the background. But if you guys have questions throughout the game, if you guys want to do trivia, let me know what you guys think. I'm super excited to kind of get this going. I'm gonna enjoy it. I hope you guys are gonna enjoy it. So yeah, go get ready to watch that. Obviously super excited for week 2. So with that, till next time, Mini.